What if you didn't have to wait until election day to have a say? Ramon Perez is making that happen. Tech that lets you weigh in on legislation in real time. Today, we'll break down how this can bring in more voices, drown out the fringes, and what challenges we still face. So stick around. While you're here, hit that subscribe button, subscribe to my Sunday newsletter. I'm also live right here on this channel every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, opining on a couple of headlines that I just think interest me. Trust me, you'll want in. Now, tired of waiting years to be heard? Ramon's flipping that script. Let's dive in. Ramon, welcome.
Charles, thank you so much for having me. I appreciate being on with you.
My pleasure. Listen, it's it is. It's the first guest that I've had on this program in years. Actually years. So everything else has been monologue. Once your team reached out to me, I said, wow, this is something I could definitely get behind. Especially this audience, by the way. There's a lot in common between what I consume and the audience.
No, I feel honored. Gosh, I'm
okay. So first off, tell me, who are you? What are you about? I know you have a great TEDx talk. I'll link to it below. But give me the elevator pitch.
Yeah, so Digital Democracy Project, our concept is to use mobile voting software that's being used currently in real elections by military voters overseas to vote from their phones. But we're not asking people to vote in an election. We're asking people to vote on legislation. We load bills as they're being debated in Congress or in our state capitals, and we let people use this high-grade, highly secure software where we verify that they're real human beings, they're not bots, they're not deep fakes. The vote token goes onto a blockchain. We guarantee there's no manipulation in the process, and so that we can trust that these are real human beings, and we get the voter files from the state, so we can trust that they are residents of their districts, but we let them weigh in on legislation as it's being debated and provide those results in real time on our website in aggregates by district. So state house district, state senate district, US Congress, so that way legislators can see what their districts want them to do on each of these bills before they take a vote in the Capitol. And at the end of the session, we compare what do the people want in the app compared to what did your legislator do on the floor. So every legislator gets a scorecard, very much like a baseball card, where here's all the bills, here's what the people in your district wanted, here's what you actually did, and how often do they match, so that you can start to get some concrete data when you go to decide whether or not to re-elect this person. Is this person actually representing our district or not? That's the very basic premise. We're using technology to give people greater voice in the process that honestly they've been shut out of for far too long.
You're leading me right into it. So tell me more about the problem. What's the actual problem you're solving? Low turnout or bad incentives? Because you can make an argument for either one. Low turnout, it gives the fringes more power, because the one job every politician wants is to be reelected. That's the one goal they're aiming towards, and that starts from the second after their victory, if they're so fortunate to win. The other part of it is if you have low turnout, you're only catering to the loudest few, and not necessarily the most informed few either.
Right. So I think you've hit upon something very important. I think of low turnout as a byproduct of a system with bad incentives that actively disenfranchises people. I would argue that the smoking gun is probably gerrymandering, where all the maps are drawn to be either safe red or safe blue districts, so there's no real competition come November, and the actual election takes place usually in the primary. And if you're in New York, I'm in Florida, closed primary states where independents don't even have a say in that process. So you're talking about an election where basically 8 to 10% of people are determining who is going to win in November, because the November election is effectively already done, but by the time you show up at the polls. So 80% of Americans live in a state that is a one-party state where it's governed entirely by the blue team or the red team. 90% of Americans, 90+%, live in a congressional district that's so heavily gerrymandered that it is considered not competitive in a general election. So should we be surprised at low turnout? Should we, like, people inherently feel that they're not being listened to because the reality is that they aren't.
Of course.
I think there's an interesting statistic, right? That there are actually more registered Republicans in California than there are in Florida. But
Really?
yes, yes. And Republicans in California have 8 U.S. House seats, and Republicans in Florida have 20. And yet, so that should give you a sense, like the Democrats gerrymander the districts in California to their benefit, the Republicans gerrymander to their
Of course.
benefit.
Right.
And we're going to go through another round here where we're making the situation even worse. Now we're at the point where we're going to end up gerrymandering the districts every 2 years. You don't like the results you got?
Right.
Okay, draw new maps every single time.
Right.
I mean, so it's madness. And I think that what you end up with is a bunch of legislators who have zero incentive to work on anything bipartisan, to compromise in any kind of way. And what we are trying to do is use technology as an end around to a broken system, to a broken set of incentives, and put people directly back into the driver's seat by saying, okay, you know what? Forget all the bias, forget the political parties, forget your, algorithmic news feed that you're getting on your social media. What if you just look at the bill itself in the black and white and decide for yourself if you think it makes sense for you and for your community, and then have your say directly on the legislation? And then what if you can hold your legislator accountable with some concrete data to say, this is what people wanted, this is what they did, and they deserve to get reelected or they don't, rather than having to guess or play the red team or the blue team.
I'm gonna jump in right there. Okay,
please
walk me through it.
Mm.
You have let's just take a House race happening. What's going to happen? Walk me through how he gets elected. First off, go ahead. Assuming it's a he.
Okay, so that person goes to Congress or goes to Albany in your case, and every bill that's going to come for a vote that's essentially that we know is going to make it to the floor. So these are going to be bills that have had committee assignments. They've got a fair amount of co-sponsors, most likely. We're going to load them in the app so that his district will have a chance to weigh in on those bills before he votes on it in Albany, right, or in Washington. That's, I think, key, because we're providing a service to legislators just as much as we are to voters, because legislators don't like taking a tough vote. They're not going to run polls. Polls are expensive. They can spend
Right.
40, 50 grand running a poll of their district. So they're only going to do that typically during a tight race election, and if they've got enough money in their campaign account. Otherwise, they're not going to run polls. So how do they hear from people? They get mountains of email spam. Most of it gets disregarded because they don't know if these are real human beings. Now, a lot of it's AI generated, or it's
Sure.
people filling out forms that are not even in their district, or maybe they're not human, or they could be robots. So they don't trust that. So basically, they vote party lines, right? The biggest incentive they have is they're afraid to get primaried from the
Right.
left or from the right. Like they're afraid of their own party typically. So they have to vote party lines. Otherwise, they're afraid they'll get jettisoned from their seat. They don't have an alternative piece of information that's concrete and solid. And I've seen this happen in Florida. So we had one of the earliest supporters of ours was a Republican down in the Keys, who's in a kind of a purple district, and
Are you at
he
liberty to
represents
say
a
who?
district. Yeah, I mean, his name's on our website. If you go to the supporters page, his name is Jim Mooney. He's a Republican from a purple district, and he represents a district that's got some heavily rural areas of South, the Everglades, but he also has Key West, which has a large gay population, which is very progressive. There was a "Don't Say Gay" bill, if you remember, a few years ago, that was big in the news, right? He voted against it because he's like, listen, I can't, if I vote, I'm not going to keep my seat if I vote against this community who basically I represent, right? Well, they primaried him for it because they didn't consider him sufficiently loyal, and he barely won re-election by about 100 votes in that primary.
Wow.
And so he'd say, this is the kind of information I wish I had at the time. If I had something concrete and I could go and say, look at the way people are voting on this bill in the app, my district will skewer me if you make me take this vote. And if you want to keep this seat, you should, give me the latitude to vote with my district on this issue.
So
And then,
I'm going
you know,
to jump in right
yeah,
there. What is the
yeah.
legislator seeing on their app? Are they seeing a poll in real time? Are they seeing trends of the more recent votes are saying vote no versus vote yes?
Yeah, if you go onto our website, digitaldemocracyproject.org, you'll see lists of bills by state or by federal. You can look at a bill and you'll get a picture of the state, and then each House district has a breakdown of how people are voting in that district. So it's quite simply how many people have voted yes, how many people have voted no, and how many people have abstained from that district. So we get the voter files from the state, and that's how we can match people to their precinct and ultimately to their legislative district. So we verify people with a photo ID against a selfie scan and against a voter file. That's how we confirm that they're US citizens, they're registered to vote, and they're residents in that district. Then we
How do
use
you
the
have
mobile
access
voting.
to their vote to verify the photo ID authenticity?
They have to do when they're onboarding into the mobile voting software. It's just like an election system. So they would follow the exact same protocol. They would take a photograph of, using your iPhone, you take a photograph of your driver's license, you take a selfie, the face matches, okay, that's first stage, does the face
Yeah.
match, and then does the license detail match what's on the voter file. There on the back of all real IDs now, there's a barcode that actually provides a digitized record with your zip code, your date of birth. That is what's going to be on the voter file.
So a fake ID wouldn't work in that case?
If a fake ID, you would have to basically have a fake ID of a real person who matches your like face, right? So you'd have to. You're saying like if I borrow my cousin's ID, or you're saying if I manufacture an ID?
No, now that I'm thinking about the details, if you get a hold of the voter rolls, because that is public information,
Yeah.
you get a hold of the voter rolls and get a fake ID as Charles Shikala myself, and put your face on the fake ID. Did I just circumvent your app?
Right. So for one, if you had the voter rolls, you still need to be able to have an ID that matches your face. So I think if you have a sophisticated deep fake, but that's the thing, is that actually a lot of the checking is a deep fake resistance. Like there's the whole concept is to make certain that this is a real ID and this is a real face, rather than it being like a deep faked image. You know what I'm saying?
Understood. Yeah, but I mean, ultimately, I can order a fake ID and put my real face on it, and then verify my real face as Ramon Perez. See what I'm saying?
Right, but the states provide a watermark that makes that harder to do, and a barcode that makes that harder to do. So it's not, it's as good as basically you're going to get at a polling location. That's the level of standard, right?
And I'm assuming also, once this is government sanctioned, this will not be that easy.
Well, right. No, you speak to a broader point, which is we need to get to the point in this country where, one, we have a consistent sort of national standard. Well, I think everybody should just be issued a passport, right? We have a national ID. We should just give it away for everybody to have, because it does have cryptography. It does have a smart chip on it, and it does have a lot of sophistication to it. That should be the national standard. For whatever reason, we don't do that, but it also should be digitized. And actually now Apple and Google are starting to do that. There's also some basically trying to put that on a blockchain and an NFT. There are ways that the open source community is trying to solve that. I think that is where we need to get to. We need to get to the point where a cryptographically secure identity that you can carry around with you and share with whoever you want to share it with, and only limit to parts of that. You don't need to give all your identity details for every encounter you have. So if you only need to validate certain parts, you should only be able to share those parts. So I think that's where the technology needs to go, and it's going in that direction.
So, in your opinion, do we have a problem in Congress or in elected office where there aren't enough moderate outcomes? Perhaps this is our democracy at work, and they are representing those who choose to participate in it.
I think it's a bit chicken and the egg, right? Because so there's this interesting Princeton study that often gets cited from 2009, I think, actually, or maybe later. But the idea was that they looked at all major policies, had some pretty significant polling behind them, and they found that effectively there was no relationship between what people wanted and what Congress did. So I think voter apathy is just a natural byproduct of just feeling like, what's the point? Nobody listens. Why bother? Right. And you're gonna start, and that's why you see these wild shifts in voter turnout. Suddenly there's a candidate that draws people's attention and they're like, oh wait, maybe here's a chance. And then they just like pour into that one candidate. Where did all these voters come from? These were voters who were sitting on the sidelines waiting for somebody to inspire them. But that's the reality is, like, there's 500,000 elected officials in the United States. You're not going to solve this problem by electing one dude. It's like,
Right.
he's not magic.
Yeah,
So you need a systemic change in the way that we elect people and the way we hold them accountable. I think this technology is a key part of it, but it's not the only thing. Obviously, I believe in all sorts of election reforms, like nonpartisan redistricting of these gerrymandered districts, or ranked choice voting, or opening the primaries. The system is broken in many ways, getting money out of politics, right? The system is broken in a lot of ways, and it's going to take a lot of ways to fix it. We're just hoping to be part of the overall solution.
So a lot of my audience is familiar with Bradley Tusk and his proposal to take voting on your phone, really.
Yeah.
And he, by no means does he propose replacing the current system. He just advocates for adding the phone as a additional method of voting. Right. That takes care of those who are maybe elderly, not technically proficient, don't have a phone of their own, so on and so on. But here's where I think this teeters on somewhat questionable grounds. We see right now, as is Donald Trump's 2020 elections, he still doesn't let go of it. Right now, we're recording this March 27, 2026, and by God, he still brings it up like every speech he has. And voter confidence in the system is degraded immensely. I mean, I was thinking about it, I think, 7 years ago, I was thinking about it. I'm like, even more. I believe it was in 2015, 16, when he thought he was going to lose. He started saying they're going to rig it. There's less and less integrity to our electoral process, so on and so on. I said, whoa, that's very dangerous. And then after he won, I thought to myself, well, we dodged something that could have really tested the American resolve around our free and fair elections.
Yeah.
I had no idea what awaited me, and I don't think anybody on earth knew what awaited them. But anyway, how can this survive? I mean, how can this survive that kind of assault, which I thought was just complete anathema? There was no way anyone would ever do it, but I've been proven wrong. So can this sustain something like that?
It's been tough going. I mean, so Bradley Tusk actually funded the original pilot in West Virginia, and that was a Republican supervisor of elections, or Secretary of State, I should say, who was the pioneer, who said, like, yeah, we want to try this out. We want to use this as military voters are actually one of the most disenfranchised group. They have part of the lowest because if they're overseas, it's tough to get an absentee ballot through the mail. If you're on a submarine under the ocean, you can't get mail. So that was the original motivation. That was 2018. So all before the whole stop the steal shenanigans and all that, right? So Republicans were some of the early adopters. So if you look at Bradley funded that proof of concept with votes, then did that in West Virginia, Utah, Arizona, and like Republican leaning places were the first adopters. Stop the steal changed the whole political dynamic. And so a lot of the other states that onboarded after that were like, Oregon, Michigan, Massachusetts, others. And it's like, it flipped the script. But then you get on the Democratic side, this whole issue with voter ID. Oh, we don't want people to have a voter ID in order to vote. And it's a barrier to entry, et cetera.
Sure.
And of course, the challenge is you can't run a mobile election system without proving identity. I mean, that's just like table stakes, right? So there's the internal politics in the Democrat that's split on this issue, and there's the internal politics in the Republicans that's split on this issue. So you find that I think there are people that I've interacted with in Tallahassee or in Washington or in other states where we're active, where you'll get legislators who just believe it's good governance. Like, regardless of party, they want to know what their districts want from them, because ultimately they don't want to take a tough vote and be on the wrong side of it. And that actually is oftentimes because they're not worried so much about general elections. They're worried about splitting their party. Things like the Epstein files, for example, things like Gaza on the Democratic side, right? These types of things are splitting the party, and they don't always know where their district stands on these things. And so they actually like it as a kind of a form of free public polling to know what to do in these tough situations. So I think when we see the kind of people who go to office believing that they are Mr. Smith goes to Washington, right? They believe in that sense of public service. It's why they are there. When they get there, they find they're trapped in a system of bad incentives where they're supposed to spend 70 or 80% of their time dialing for dollars. They have no time to read the legislation. Their entire legislative staff has been cut because of budgets, and they have these bills, 1,000-page omnibus, thrown on them at the 11th hour. So honestly, using technology is as much of a service to them as it is to the voter. So I think we're starting to see, if you go on our supporters page, you can see all the legislators and candidates who've already endorsed the project. I think we have clearly, look, I've been thrown out of many politicians' offices, okay, because they think I'm trying to sabotage them or something, or run some, like, I've had Democrats say I'm some stalking horse for Ron DeSantis and that I'm trying to manipulate them. I've had Republicans say, you guys have democracy in your title. That must be you're aligned with the progressives. Right. I mean, it's crazy, but I do think that we can find a core group, and I talk about this in the TED Talk, but we had a core group of bipartisan legislators do a funding appropriation on our behalf and push it all the way through the legislative process in Tallahassee. Shortly after that TED Talk was released, like 4 weeks later, Ron DeSantis vetoed it. Uh-huh. So here's a case where you had Republicans, some very conservative Republicans, Senator Keith Perry, who sponsored the bill, and Alex Andrade, who's a Pensacola Republican, on the budget committee, and then some very progressive Democrats who pushed it all the way through the process, working together because they just thought it was a good governance tool. So I think that the tools speak for themselves. It really is just about showing people that.
I'm going to ask you on those tools. Why isn't it? So at what point does the legislator stop deliberating and start just giving in to mob rule? Because at this point, why have the legislator?
Well, you're asking a deep philosophical question there. I mean, if you could do this at scale, you could imagine a future where we have some form of direct democracy, but I don't think we're not necessarily advocating for that anytime soon. But I will say this, okay, so if you go and take a look at our supporters page, all the legislators and the candidates who have endorsed the project have all been consistently saying, I want to use this to hear from my district to inform my vote, not to replace my vote, right? But there is a guy, Dan Williams, who's running for a U.S. House in Florida 11, who's a professor of technology at a university there, who said, no, actually, I will make it my job if you elect me I will give you the best information I can give you, the most current information of what's being debated in Congress, and I will put it to you to vote on the app, and then I will do what you tell me. I will put my faith in my district, but it will be my job to inform and educate, and it'll be your job to decide. So he's going a level further, I think, than anybody else is proposing, but I mean, the technology allows us to
take this rep. Take this rep.
Yeah.
What's preventing me from going in and saying, hey, everybody in that district, I'll give you a free chocolate cake if you vote no. And then the legislator is bound to vote no.
You certainly could do that. You absolutely could do that. And I think that the thing that makes that harder is that currently you can walk into that legislator's office with a sack of campaign funds, and all you need to do is bribe one person, right? Mm-hmm. But if you flip the script, now you have to bribe the 150,000 people that live in his district? That's a lot of bribing.
Gotcha.
So from that standpoint, I mean, it makes it much more expensive to try to manipulate the system if you have a lot more people to convince. And by the way, it is an election software, so we have a secret ballot. People could take your chocolate cake and vote the way they want anyway. There's no guarantee that they'll actually vote the way you want them to. So that's why actually the secret ballot exists in the first place, is to prevent that kind of bribery.
Now you take let's say what TikTok algorithms or AI is done these days.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I mean, I think it was for every 50 videos there were pro Hamas or pro Gaza. There was one that was pro Israel on the TikTok algorithm. I don't quote me on the statistic, but it's something of that ratio.
That wouldn't surprise me at all.
Now, that's not taking a side on either thing. Not here, not now. I clearly have a side on this, but but that is subject to manipulating certain districts, targeting certain demographics, and targeting certain opinions to actually be held and expressed for the American public to see. Is that not a susceptible weakness of this app?
I think that that's a susceptible weakness of our current system. I think what we're proposing is that if you go on our website, we provide a nonpartisan summary of every piece of legislation. And the way we do this is we load the text of the bill into these AI tools. And we provide a summary, and then we have it go through human.
What? And are they biased in any way?
Which we put through human review to make certain that they are not biased and conform to our mission. I mean, we're a 501c3 nonprofit, and we are non-biased intentionally so. And because we want people to be as informed as possible. So you click on a bill, there's a little chat bot in the bottom right that you can interact with. The bot is loaded with the entire legislative text, hundreds of pages of it in its knowledge base. And you can ask detailed questions. Say, tell me exactly where you got this information about that this bill has these procedures. Okay, one big beautiful bill. How does it affect SNAP payments? Okay, where in the bill did you find that affects SNAP payments? Give me the citation.
Now, what if you
ask the section number?
What if you ask it, will I lose my health insurance? Then then you get into the realm of personalization. Is it that capable?
So, I think that we don't have it designed to personalize to you at this point. I think that the technology is capable. We would have to have people, like signed in and kind of with their votes, a credential and things like that. So it is achievable. It's just that nobody's really asked us to do that. Right now, it is basically just giving facts about the legislation. Will I lose my insurance? It's going to respond by saying, will some people lose their insurance, right? Whether or not it affects you personally, it's not going to know. But it will give you the more broad understanding of, if you pass this bill, the CBO estimate is that 20 million people will lose their insurance because of the premiums or like that, premium support going away, that kind of a thing.
Okay, let's put this into a real world situation here. A lot of my followers on my channel know of my story of I have a son, cleft palate, cleft lip. For those of you who aren't aware of the story, just go back to the March 27th stream. I say the whole story on it. I will not repeat it here. Ramon is familiar with it. I'm actively involved in passing New York state legislation, and actually federally as well, where the cleft lip, palate, any craniofacial deformity or abnormality would be covered by law. By law, insurance would have to cover treatment to repair those. Now,
it actually was a surprise to me that that's not already the case.
No, it's not. It's not a recognized disability. It's not with the ADA. It's not a red state, blue state thing. There's, I think Oregon has the best legislation for it, but I think I know somebody who left Texas to go to Oklahoma to get the treatment, or the other way around. So it's sporadic. It's sporadic, but I am leading the charge in at least New York State, and I would love to see it federally. Right now, there is the ELSA Act that's almost in committee. So it's only the second time around. So let's play this out. Let's play this out. Yeah. I want the ELSA Act to pass federally, or I want Ray's Law, my son, to pass in New York State. Pick either one, and we'll go with it.
Right. So basically, what we would do is we'd load the bill into the mobile app. People especially I did take a look. It already has co-sponsors. It's already been drafted. It's moving through the process. I didn't
Mhm.
check to see if it's got a committee assignment yet. We tend to load bills that look like they're going to make it to the floor for a vote. That's how we kind of prioritize.
Well, bro.
Because yeah, what's that?
Okay. No, I'm
Yeah,
saying
we don't.
for the full floor vote.
Yeah, typically because we
Okay.
want people to vote on bills that are going to be the credible likelihood that they will get a vote.
Yeah.
And partly that's because, just to narrow down, I mean, there are thousands of bills that get drafted every year that
Sure.
never go
Yeah.
anywhere, right? So we don't want to inundate people. We really want them to be focused on the key pieces of legislation that are actually getting traction. So we typically say, okay, the ELSA Act, it gets committee assignments, it's got lots of co-sponsors, it's got bipartisan consensus. All right, so we load it into the app. Then voters read the nonpartisan summaries we provide. They interact with the chatbot. We also provide lists of organizations that have taken a stance on the app or on the bill. So you could say, okay, what American Medical Association believes in this is a good idea, and
Yeah.
maybe the hospital association doesn't like it, or maybe the insurance industry
Okay.
doesn't, whatever, right? So people can see, because they all have their lobbying groups, and we go and find them and we put them into the website so that people have a sense of who's on which side of these issues, and details about those organizations. But once the voter is comfortable and feels well informed enough, then they click to vote on the app, yes, no, abstain, and the vote token goes onto the blockchain. It gets aggregated along with the rest, and we report out the results by House district. In this case, the ELSA Act is a federal bill.
Yeah.
So you would see a map on the ELSA Act bill on our website with all the House districts and all the states. And as the people are voting, they start to light up, to
So
show
then why
what
would they
people believe.
vote? Why people barely find the time to respond to text messages these days? Why are they
Yeah.
sitting down and letting their legislators know what they think of certain policy issues? Why bother me with that?
I think it's I like to point to the Wikipedia model. I think that if you look at our website, probably 10 times as many people will come visit the website as actually vote on a bill. It's very similar to billions of people use Wikipedia, but only something like 2% of them actually contribute to a Wikipedia
Sure. Yeah.
article, right? But you get these super users who are actually the ones drafting Wikipedia articles from scratch, not just editing them, right? And they make an incredibly important contribution. I think it's a very similar model. You're going to have some people who want to vote on every single thing because they want to be engaged, they want to support the overall project, they believe in the mission, and they want to be involved. You've got others, which is the more likely case, where people go into the app because there's a specific topic that they care about, and they only are there to support or oppose that
Yeah.
topic and then disregard the rest. And we want to be able to support all of that. Like, our goal is to build a platform where we want the tools to exist so that people can have a voice. And I think it's very similar to people who call their congressman, people who write a letter, people who send an email. And this is a more modern way to do it where the
We
legislator
will
can
say that's
trust.
not that many people,
Right.
especially within a district.
Yeah, that is correct. But what you'll tend to see is some high profile bills get like flood the switchboards
Yeah.
in
Okay.
Congress, right? But lower, not as well known bills don't get the media coverage, so they don't get a lot of people calling the switchboards. I think that whole engagement challenge is an existing challenge in our current system. Our hope is to lower the barrier to entry and make the tools available so that people can just be like, oh, this is interesting. I got a text message saying this bill is coming up and that's of interest to me. So I'll go engage on that. But I don't have to be involved in every single thing. So I want the government on demand, like the Netflix of government, right? We want people to be able to get involved when they want to get involved and ignore the rest and make that as more of a seamless process.
So we're winding down here.
Yeah.
What made you go from the military to
Mm.
this?
Right. So I was a military officer. I did tours in Iraq, Afghanistan, and so there was a guy I was in college with named Tyler Brown who was he commissioned before me. He was an Army officer, and he was shot by a sniper in Fallujah in Ramadi in 2004. And I think after January 6th, especially January 6th, I felt like, what was Tyler's sacrifice for? Why did we spend 20
Were you
years
still in
building?
service on January 6th?
I was no longer in service at that point. I
Okay.
had become a technology consultant and entered the private sector. I've been working in AI and machine learning for the last dozen years.
Hmm.
So I had left active duty. I had gone back to graduate school, then I got involved in the private sector. But I had felt like, why did we as a country spend 20 years trying to build democratic institutions in the Middle East, and then to feel like it's falling apart in our own country? I was just as much concerned about what I saw in Portland. I was in Portland shortly after, the city collapsed and sort of an
Yeah.
anarchist group kind of took
Yep.
over control of the city. And the place looked, I had lived in Latin America as well. I lived in Chile for a while and visited several parts of Latin America. And it reminded me of some of what I had seen in other parts of the world. And it's kind of scary, right? To see how quickly if our institutions collapse or our trust in government falls apart, people will revert to this notion that let's find a strong man, or let's have complete anarchy and government collapse, because they don't believe democracy can deliver for them anymore. And so to me, I felt like, what can I do, how, as a way to maybe extend my own service, but also take what I had been working on as a technology, and it's as a technology guy, what can I do to get back involved in the fight for America, in the belief that our republic is worth fighting for. Our democracy has to prove that it's worth people defending. And if people feel like their voices aren't heard, there's no accountability, none of it matters, they'll either become apathetic and completely check out, which obviously we see a lot of that happening, or they'll become violent and either try to install a dictator or just burn it all down in some sort of a like roaming hordes, running
As
around. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to have, like, what can we do to convince people that the tools exist for us to believe again in that this system can be accountable to us, and that this is a government that ultimately belongs to us, and can be back under our control.
so I mean, I said winding down, but this is the last question, and as an homage
Mm.
to a big fan favorite of mine, Michael Smerconish, I will say, and I mean it. Last question, and I mean it. How has the, I guess, say, public opinion during COVID-19, let's say vaccine, anti-vax skepticism, built into your model of some people will believe it's day when the moon is out, or it's night when the sun is out? I
Yeah,
mean,
yeah,
some people don't even believe science or the scientific method, let alone believing that there's a method of democracy and self-rule here.
yeah.
Um,
It's a
Go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, the lack of trust. I mean, trust in the system is at an all-time low. And I actually think, as much as people think I'm crazy to say this, I think one of the game changers here has been AI, because right now you get a lot of your news and information from algorithmically driven social media feeds that are biased on purpose, or from news channels that are biased on purpose because they make money by driving enragement, not
Yeah.
by keeping you informed. And I think that's a lot of the motivation for us to do this as a nonprofit organization and be mission driven, is to go out and find the best tools to give people good information. And AI has been incredibly valuable in helping us break down complex subjects into plain language that people can understand and engage with at a comfort that gives them a comfort in engaging with, right? So that's been incredibly powerful. I'm actually quite excited about AI for its ability to bring down that information barrier and actually deliver facts in a way that's non-threatening to people. Um, but also, just, I do believe that blockchain and cryptography and the ability to have a say in a way that maintains veracity is an equally critical part of this formula. So I'm excited about it, because I know that it's rough, but at the same time, because it's rough, because there's such lack of trust, the demand is overwhelming. People really are looking for an optimistic view of the future and a better alternative to what we've got. They don't necessarily know why the system is broken. They just know that the outcomes that we're getting are not satisfactory and are
So
looking for
now
something
explain
new.
this to me. Explain this
Yeah,
to me. What
yeah.
have you've been doing? You've been doing a media blitz for recently.
Mm.
What haven't I asked you that you want to get out in your messaging?
Oh, when are we going to be in New York State?
You're more than welcome, especially to mobilize raise law. I'm all in favor of that. All in favor of
Absolutely.
that.
No, I mean, we're active in 7 states. We want to be in all 50 state legislatures by the end of the year. So I absolutely, like, by the time the New York legislature rolls around early next year, that we'd be carrying your bill. I think that would be super exciting. So,
I'm hoping to get it done before that, to be honest with you.
all
But
right.
push comes to shove, I may give you a call. All right,
Yeah.
Ramon, thank you so much for being here and everything that you're doing. I mean, a lot of what you've said, professed, and a lot of what my audience is familiar with is hits close to home. So here's for nuance and moderation, right?
Well, thank you, I think, for help spreading the word, because this is a community project. We're actually all volunteers, developers, organizers, legislative analysts, and it's going to take folks like you in the media to help spread the word. This is the kind of thing where we need people to not only hear about it, but to believe again. And I think that message is so critical, and I just appreciate being on and having a chance to talk to your audience about it.
Thank you. Where can the audience find you?
digitaldemocracyproject.org.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Charles.